Hey everyone, Kylie here. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, I'm Kylie. I'm an American living in Portugal since 2022, and I make videos about life, business, and finance here in Portugal as an expat. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing how you as an expat can avoid getting yourself involved in a rental scam here in Portugal. Specifically, I'm going to be sharing why it's so easy to be the victim of a rental scam here, why expats in particular are vulnerable to these types of scams, what the typical rental scam tends to look like here. Most importantly, I'm going to share 7 tips how to avoid being the victim of one of these rental scams. But before getting into the video, please pay attention to these 2 very important disclaimers. First, this video is going to be mostly relevant to those of you interested in renting in either the greater Lisbon area or the greater Porto area, and I will explain why shortly. If you are planning on moving to the countryside or to a smaller city, again, this video might not be as relevant to you, but it's still good information to be aware of. Second, this video is not meant to demonize the Portuguese landlords, Portuguese real estate agents, or the broader real estate system here in general. It really doesn't matter where in the world you're looking for an apartment, there's always a scammer somewhere looking for their next victim. So even though the focus of this video is scams here in Portugal, I'm not trying to say that Portugal is unique in the fact that scams happen here. All right, now with those disclaimers covered, let's go ahead and get into the good stuff. All right, first of all, so why is it so easy to be involved in a rental scam here in Portugal, not only as an expat, but quite frankly, as a local as well? The reason why rental scams are common here and people fall for them often is because of the intense competition for rentals in this market. If you've seen my previous videos, then you already understand that the competition for rentals here in Portugal, particularly in Lisbon and Porto, is super cutthroat. If you want to get an apartment here, you basically have to view the apartment, decide whether you want it or not in a couple of hours, and then make a security deposit almost immediately, otherwise it's gonna be gone. Actually, in a lot of cases, expats and even locals don't even go and view an apartment before renting it because they know that they just have to move that fast if they want a chance of getting it. Scammers are very well aware of the rental crisis going on here, and they're taking advantage of the situation to scam people more easily. Now, the reason why I made the disclaimer before that this video is most relevant to those of you interested in Lisbon and Porto is because that's where the majority of the competition is. And again, where the competition is where the scammers tend to concentrate themselves. All right, point number 2. Why are expats particularly vulnerable to being the victim of a rental scam? The thing is, both expats and locals are very vulnerable because they're all fighting one another for the same apartments. However, as an expat, you're usually very unaware of how the rental system works here, and you don't know what red flags to look out for, which makes you more vulnerable. In addition to that, there's one thing that makes you as an expat even more vulnerable, and I see this happen all the time if I'm being totally honest. So consider this scenario. An expat will find themselves in a situation where a landlord they met online is offering them an apartment to rent, but something the landlord says makes the person uncomfortable. However, instead of confronting the landlord about the concern, the expat will just go along with it because they don't want to be that annoying, overbearing, impolite, or person who asks too many questions expat. So in an attempt to be polite, they don't question the landlord, they give in to their demands, give up their money, and then eventually realize they got scammed. So it's the combination of just not understanding the system here, not knowing what red flags to look out for, and not wanting to be that overbearing expat who asks a lot of questions that really makes foreigners vulnerable to scams here. So how exactly do scammers take advantage of renters here? To be honest, there's a handful of different ways that scammers will try to take advantage of people, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to focus on 2 scenarios in particular. The first scenario is the obvious one. A scammer will put a fake listing up either on social media or a listing website. You'll take a look at their photos. They'll convince you to send them money for a security deposit. You make the deposit, and then you know what happens after that. The second way that people tend to get scammed here in Portugal is not as direct or obvious as the first one. What happens in the second scenario is either a landlord or a real estate listing agent will post an apartment that they're renting out online, either on social media or a listing website, rent it out, and then keep that listing live online for several days, weeks, or even months after it's already been rented out to another tenant. Then eager people like you and I will contact that landlord or listing agent, say, hey, is this apartment still available? The landlord or agent will respond with, oh, sorry, I just rented that out a little bit ago, but I will keep you informed for when another one of my apartments opens up. Then people like you and I who are quite frankly exhausted by the process of looking for a rental here will say, oh my gosh, wow, that's great. Thank you so much for looking out for me. Then sometime in the future, the landlord or the listing agent will contact you about another apartment that they have open that is legit. However, it comes with an extremely high price tag for the fact that they're serving it up to you on a silver platter and they know you're desperate for options. And then people like you and me, being exhausted from the apartment search, will just pay whatever money they're asking for, regardless of how high it is, because again, you are exhausted from the process and you're thankful that this person was looking out for you. So like I said, there are other ways that people will get scammed rental-wise here in Portugal, but those are two of the main reasons I wanted to point out for this video. All right, now let's move on to the good stuff. How do you avoid getting involved in a rental scam here in Portugal, or AKA, what are the red flags you should be looking out for? First red flag, if a landlord or a listing agent you meet online offers you an apartment and then tells you to take all the time you need to make your decision or just to take your time, then there's a good chance it is a scam. The truth is, the rental market here is too competitive for you to sit around and think about your decision. No landlord or real estate agent in their right mind would ever give you or tell you to take all the time in the world you need to make a decision unless they want to scam you. Red flag number 2, if a landlord asks you for some type of collateral before signing your lease, run. Just say no if the landlord or listing agent asks you to transfer them money for any reason before you sign your lease. Even though the rental market is so competitive here, under no circumstance is it acceptable here in Portugal for you to be paying a landlord before you sign anything. For example, if a landlord or listing agent asks you to deposit money just to go and view an apartment, then know that that money is likely to be gone for good and there is no apartment. All right, red flag number 3. If you contact a landlord through a apartment listing website and the landlord tries to tell you that there's some sort of certified landlord through the listing website, then your spidey senses should begin tingling again. The most common apartment listing websites here in Portugal don't necessarily accredit or certify landlords before allowing them to list a property on their website. Now, unless the landlord is affiliated with a specific real estate agency and you can go and view that agency's website to verify the information they're telling you, then they're probably pulling your leg. And if they're pulling your leg like that, do you really think you should trust them further? Red flag number 4. If a landlord asks you to pay a security deposit through a medium that isn't their Portuguese bank account with an IBAN that starts with PT and is not in their exact full name, then tread very carefully. For example, if a landlord asks you to pay them through PayPal or some similar medium, then tread carefully. When it comes to paying rent or making a deposit on an apartment here in Portugal, you really want to be making payments to a direct Portuguese bank account that begins with an IBAN of PT. It's just a much easier way to keep track of all of your payments and deposits versus if you were to go ahead and do that through PayPal or some other similar medium. What I'm really trying to say is that when you pay a Portuguese landlord directly through a bank transfer through a Portuguese bank account, it's much easier for you to keep track of all of the deposits and payments you make to the landlord. On that same token, it's much easier for scammers to get away with taking your money when they're doing it through a medium that isn't a Portuguese bank account that is very easily verifiable. All right, red flag number 5, and this one is a little bit unique. If your landlord verbally agrees to a certain rent with you, but then puts a different number on your lease agreement, particularly a lower number, then it might be a sign that they're trying to evade taxes. For example, let's say you and the landlord verbally agree to 1,000 euros per month, but then you look at your contract and it says 700 per month. According to the real estate professionals I work with, some of them say that this way of evading taxes here in Portugal is very common, and others say it's not that common. It's really hard to tell how often it happens. However, nobody denies that it does happen and that they've seen it before. Now, in your opinion, this might not fall into the scam category, but it does nonetheless entangle you in a tax evasion situation. Just decide for yourself if that's something that you want to get involved with. Red flag number 6. If a landlord doesn't have a real estate agent or real estate agency representing them and their apartment, and at the same time they don't allow you to do a virtual or in-person walkthrough of the apartment, then proceed with caution. The fact is, if a landlord is listing their apartment without a listing agent, there are fewer checks and balances protecting you from a potential scam. By that, I mean that it's easier for the landlord to scam you because there is no listing agent there to legitimize and verify that the rental does exist. I'm not trying to say that you automatically shouldn't trust landlords who list an apartment themselves instead of going through a listing agent to help them. Rather, I'm just saying that you should take a little bit of extra caution because there is no licensed real estate expert there to confirm that the listing is legitimate. Unless you know the landlord personally or through somebody else, then again, just proceed with caution. And finally, number 7, do not let your guard down if a landlord or listing agent does the whole, oh, this apartment was just taken, but I'll let you know when my next one is free. Now, could the landlord or the listing agent be acting in good faith? Sure. But what you have to ask yourself is how many other people have they told that exact same thing to? And if they're telling that same thing to so many people knowing that they can't help everyone because quite frankly, there just aren't enough apartments in Portugal to house everyone, then what are they really doing? What is their real intention? In this sort of situation, you want to hope that the landlord or listing agent is acting in good faith. But again, you just want to recognize the situation and proceed with caution. All right, everybody, that about does it for this video. If you did find the video helpful, please be sure to like it. Every additional like that I get really does help encourage me to continue creating more and more content for y'all. But for now, this is it, and I hope to see y'all in the next video. Bye.